Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 101, All Parties Arrive. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Every word Qin Ming spoke was true. He had indeed witnessed an ancient grandmaster approaching him, wielding a great spear that stirred the dark clouds into a tempestuous frenzy, summoning thunder and lightning. The grandmaster's peerless, heroic figure shook heaven and earth. Tragically, the overlord ultimately met a gruesome end. After piercing the elder's jade-white palm, drawing blood, he was bound by golden immortal runes. The renowned elder from the Night Mist world then struck him 6 times from afar, targeting the overlord limbs, torso, and head. Each strike caused a corresponding body part to explode. In the final moment before his skull shattered, the overlord remained silent, his eyes blazing with fury as 2 golden bolts of lightning shot forth from his gaze. Yet the white-haired, youthful-faced elder casually brushed his jade-like palm across the air, shattering the lightning bolts into nothingness. The overlord cultivation realm was lower than the elder's. His ability to wound a powerful figure from beyond the mortal realm, drawing blood from the elder's right hand, had shaken the world over a century ago. After the overlord's death, his crimson blood spilled onto the ground glowed with an enduring radiance, like clusters of undying divine flames. It was only when the elder stamped his foot, scorching the earth into barren wasteland, that the lingering phenomena finally vanished. The overlord's ability to escape and write down his life's work was undoubtedly extraordinary, but it was also due to the old senior's unhurried pursuit. I see a glimmer of hope on this path and wish to do something for future generations. I want to record what I've seen and heard, write down my insights, and pave a path for those who come after me, hoping they can go even further than I have. This was the overlord's reason for continuing to write down his life's teachings even as he fled, gravely wounded. In truth, he had written down everything he knew, but the old senior tore out half of them, read it, and then crushed it into ashes. The bloodstained black beast hide book lying before them had been personally discarded by the old senior, who wanted to see who would try to learn from it, and whether the overlord still had any friends, disciples, or followers. A century of vicissitudes has reduced everything to dust. The overlord's legacy was severed, leaving only regret. Yet the old senior still lives, towering above all. In recent years, he has even begun taking on new disciples again. Qin Ming naturally dared not voice these thoughts aloud, only sighing inwardly. Generally, in the same realm, outsiders could suppress those on the path of awakening. But the overlord had defied this norm, defeating higher-ranked opponents, a feat many in that era considered heaven-defying. An outsider disciple spoke up. Though the overlord was valiant, he ultimately perished. In just over a century, few remember him. Yet that elder remains as radiant as the sun at its zenith. This is the difference between the mortal and the immortal. Tang Zumi nodded in agreement. Well said. We must strive to emulate our predecessors, draw closer to immortality, and seek true enlightenment. He then placed a 2-inch tall jade vial into Qin Ming's hand. Brother Li, are you injured? Take this medicine to strengthen your qi and spirit. I'm fine, Qin Ming politely declined. Tang Zumi pressed the vial into his hand, his expression conveying, you're not fine. Seeing his earnestness, Qin Ming found it difficult to refuse. This wasn't just spiritual medicine, it was a gesture of recognition and acceptance. To reject it now would be impolite. Tang Zumi smiled. Brother Li, is this your first time in Luofu City? Let junior sister Li show you the ancient millennium-old sites, they're well worth seeing. We'll take our leave now so as not to intrude on your time. Let's gather properly another day. For all outsiders this warm and welcoming. Qin Ming was favorably impressed by the elite disciples. Without their help, he might never have discovered the Overlord Testament. Tang Zumi is inherently decent, but he's not as simple as he seems. He was testing me, Li Qingyu remarked. By now, they had reached the street, preparing to head to the ancient architectural district for a meal. Li Qingyu explained, this jade jar is made of a special material, containing a wisp of Tang Zumi's consciousness, a spiritual light. Once placed in your hand, it will quickly merge into your flesh and blood. Qin Ming was startled, but he felt no discomfort. Maintaining intense mental focus, his unique resonance ability activated instantly, allowing him to perceive a faint glow at the bottom of the jar. He doesn't know I've cultivated special spiritual eyes that can see that light, Li Qingyu said. He wants to observe how long it takes for me to sense the spiritual light after it enters your body. If she remained unaware, Tang Zumi would use Qin Ming as a beacon within the spiritual cave, allowing him to clearly sense Qin Ming's location within a certain range. Her expression shifted, and she added, your heavenly light force is truly extraordinary, or perhaps I should say, remarkably powerful. It's actually blocking his light of the consciousness. Qin Ming understood perfectly. At this stage, his heavenly light force possessed remarkable spiritual properties, automatically protecting his body. Mosquitoes couldn't land on him, and even dust couldn't settle on his skin. My heavenly light force is indeed formidable, he replied. If I keep the jar on me, I'm afraid I might accidentally disperse that wisp of the light of the consciousness. He retrieved his dragon armor and temporarily wrapped the jade jar within it. Qinming said, I thought he was being genuinely enthusiastic, trying to curry favor with you through me. I thought he was a simple, good-natured person. I never imagined he'd be scheming against me all along. Li Qingyu nodded. To rise through the ranks of the outsider disciples, he couldn't possibly be honest. Both of us are considered top contenders for the near-immortal artifact, so it's natural for us to test each other's mettle. Qinming suggested, later, let's buy a slightly intelligent spiritual bird. We'll release it in the spiritual cave and have Tang Zumi play the role of the bird-chasing boy. That could work, Li Qingyu agreed. Ha. Then, Li Qingyu solemnly informed him that a former disciple of the Tathagata might have been invited to join the fray, posing a significant threat to the golden armored guards. A successor of the Tathagata force. Qinming was genuinely shocked. Ever since embarking on the path of awakening, he had been keenly interested in this lineage, having heard its name mentioned countless times, resonating like thunder in his ears. Li Qingyu shook her head. He is not a true successor. It's said that he was expelled after only learning the basics. But I've heard he fused some other heavenly light forces, making him still incredibly formidable, capable of harming outsiders. A former disciple of the Tathagata who only learned the basics. I'd still like to see what he's capable of, Qinming said. He then asked about other formidable figures among the golden armored guards. Kui Chongshuan, your younger brother is not to be underestimated. He has mastered the 6 imperial heart scripture. Even though he has only achieved a minor level of mastery, his power is formidable, capable of injuring those from the outer realms as well. The 6 imperial heart scripture, a legendary scripture, was feared even by outsiders. During his time with the Kui clan, Qinming had once been within 3 feet of the book, yet he had been forbidden from reading it. This time, Kui Chong was barred from participating. After deliberation, the elders of the Beyond the Mortal Realm decreed that only disciples who had joined within the past 3 years would be eligible to compete. Their reasoning was simple: conflicts among new disciples were easier to control. Even if accidents occurred, resulting in bloodshed or casualties, it wouldn't cripple any of the major clans. If we allowed senior disciples to participate, we might as well have us old fogies fight each other directly. This near-immortal artifact is particularly suited for younger disciples. When Kui Chong heard the news, he immediately sought out his master. How could he be considered a senior disciple? Though his master's reputation shook the Night Mist world, some figures in the Beyond the Mortal Realm could rival him. His protests were futile. Desperate to obtain the legendary artifact within the spiritual cave, Kui Chong began grooming a junior brother, personally helping him acquire the Yin-Yang Grand Elixir to enhance his strength. Kui Chong had even dragged his younger brother, Kui Chongshuan, to compete for that artifact. Kui Chongshuan's 6 imperial heart scripture could harm outsiders and break through others' heavenly light force. Li Qingyu explained, this time, senior disciples are forbidden from participating. There's also an age restriction on the golden armored guards accompanying the new disciples, they must be young as well. Otherwise, some noble clan scions might bring their elders along. Qinming asked, even with these restrictions, wouldn't some of the younger golden armored guards still be outer saints? Li Qingyu nodded. Most will have only just entered the manifestation realm. A few who have cultivated special heavenly light force techniques might still be in the awakening realm. I'm probably the weakest one here, aren't I? Qinming said, feeling somewhat ashamed. Li Qingyu smiled faintly. You started late, just beginning your path of awakening. But Uncle Meng told me your potential is boundless. I'll protect you this time. You'll only need to act when we're resisting heavenly light force intrusions. Qinming felt uneasy. He had been temporarily assigned as a golden armored guard, how could he let Li Qingyu protect him? The former disciple of the Tathagata and Kui Chongshuan, with his 6 imperial heart scripture, could both harm outsiders and break through others' heavenly light force. Qinming believed his own skills were no less formidable. After enjoying some local delicacies, they headed back to their lodgings. I can't let you escort me back. I should take you to the inn first, Qinming said, feeling somewhat helpless. There are many outsiders here with unfathomable abilities, Li Qingyu said. Since you haven't yet entered into the realm of consciousness, you're vulnerable to being spied upon. I should escort you back to the inn first. After Qinming began walking with her, they inevitably drew the attention of certain individuals. With Meng Xinghai at the inn, she felt reassured, as long as nothing happened along the way. Qinming being escorted back to the inn by the strikingly beautiful Li Qingyu drew frequent glances and astonished looks from the young men nearby. Upon returning, Qinming immediately began studying the Overlord legacy. Initially, it seemed unremarkable, but after reaching the spirit field realm, complex transformations began to emerge. Though he couldn't yet practice it in depth, he now understood that this was a priceless manual of immense value, one he would need to treat with utmost seriousness in the future. In the courtyard, Qinming wielded the bronze staff in place of his great spear, moving with the force of a gale, as if he could cleave mountains, split seas, and pierce the night sky. This wind force is peculiar, likely fused with other techniques, he mused. The Overlord legacy, recorded on animal hide, primarily focused on wind force and Overlord force in its early stages, which Qinming had already begun practicing through the night. Over the next 2 days, Li Qingyu accompanied Qinming throughout Luofu City, exploring ancient ruins and savoring local delicacies. During this time, Qinming continued to refine those two special forces, particularly the bizarre Overlord force. He had already sensed its extraordinary potential, seemingly unremarkable in the awakening realm, but destined to become terrifyingly powerful when combined with the spirit field. The early stages aren't difficult to master, Qinming said, having already cultivated 2 forms of heavenly light force. The real challenge lies in the later transformations. It's time to depart, Meng Xinghai said, pleased to see Qinming still diligently cultivating even at the inn. Where's my golden armor? Qinming asked, already clad in his dragon armor, 12 short spears strapped to his back, bow and arrows at his side, and his bronze staff in hand. It's at the Mount Luofu ruins, Meng Xinghai replied, accompanying him. That day, Mount Luofu immortal town buzzed with activity as disciples from various Dao lineage and blessed lands gathered, their numbers considerable. Outsider disciples have converged on Mount Luofu immortal town. A fierce competition is about to begin. News spread across the land. The upcoming competition had been the subject of intense speculation for days, drawing the attention of countless observers. No need to rush, Meng Xinghai said. We'll officially enter the immortal mountain ruins and the spiritual cave tomorrow morning. Li Qingyu was summoned by her sect for final reminders and guidance. Mount Luofu immortal town stood adjacent to the ruins, boasting fire springs and remnants of ancient architecture that exuded a palpable sense of antiquity. Qinming spotted several familiar faces, Kui Chong, Wang Kaiwei, Zheng Mao's, and, after more than 2 years, Li Qingshu. He didn't linger, returning to his room in the immortal town to amuse himself with a spiritual sparrow, patiently awaiting tomorrow's entry. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel. Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 102, The Great Pioneering Era. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Qinming was training his spiritual sparrow, having not yet transferred Tang Zumi's spiritual consciousness into the crimson bird. He planned to arrange this when they entered the spiritual cave. You're still in the mood to play with birds. Meng Xinghai arrived, surprised to find him so relaxed. I'm emulating the ancient masters, Qinming replied. Maintaining composure in the face of great events. Meng Xinghai cautioned, be careful tonight. Only you and the other core disciples are allowed to stay in Mount Luofu immortal town. The rest of us have to remain outside the town. Qinming's expression turned serious. Do you think outsider disciples would dare to make a move within the town? Normally, they wouldn't, Meng Xinghai said, but we can't rule out the possibility of an unexpected incident. I'm probably the lowest ranked cultivator in Mount Luofu immortal town, Qinming said, gripping his jade iron sword. I really should be on guard. Don't worry, Meng Xinghai chuckled. Just let Qingyu protect you. Qinming dodged the teasing and asked, Uncle Meng, among Qingyu's rivals, the golden armored guards, and the other powerful figures, who should I be particularly wary of? The core disciples competing this time have all reached the second realm, the Yellow Court, though most of them are newly ascended, Meng Xinghai explained. He assured Qinming that Li Qingyu could handle these opponents herself. Qinming sighed, look at their names, Heart Purification, Yellow Court, all rooted in classical texts, each with a clear origin. Then look at our path. Who even came up with these realm names? Meng Xinghai replied, our names arose from the practical circumstances of the great environment back then. They were simply what we called things based on what we saw. Practical. Qinming could only praise the founding ancestors of this path. Meng Xinghai sighed, in the early days, after the sun vanished, fire springs emerged, giant beasts roamed rampant, and dangerous, mysterious plants proliferated, threatening our very survival. During that era, the pioneers who forged the path of awakening made tremendous contributions. They relied on constant physical mutation to battle the giant beasts and eradicate vast swaths of terrifying plants. Thus, the name, Awakening, truly held profound meaning, representing the entire race's awakening during that dangerous era. The title, Outer Saint, was truly deserved in that era. After multiple awakenings, individuals reached a critical point where their heavenly light began to radiate outward. No longer passive and powerless against the giant beasts with their strange abilities, they could now slay mysterious creatures, cut down terrifying mountain-sized monstrous plants, and safeguard their territories. They truly earned the title of Saint. Therefore, the title, Outer Saint, remained in use for a long time. Everything changed with the emergence of the ancient method. As humanity established its foothold, ancient religious texts were rediscovered, gradually giving rise to outsiders and masters of the esoteric sects. From that point onward, the term, outer saint, gradually fell out of favor, even being mocked as, outer nephew. Most of the time, people simply referred to them as, manifestation, which aptly described their outward radiating heavenly light. Were all those dangerous monsters, mountain-sized plants, and elusive creatures, the unpredictable, spirit-like, beings, eradicated? Qin Ming asked, his interest piqued by this historical period. Unfortunately, ancient texts contained little detailed information about these events. Meng Xinghai shook his head. How could they all be eradicated? You don't think the night mist world we know today is the entirety of it, do you? It's merely a corner we've carved out. Just a corner of the world. Qin Ming was genuinely shocked. Even after regaining his memories, he had never learned this. No one in the Kui clan had ever discussed such matters with him. More importantly, the upper echelons seemed to be deliberately concealing the truth about the world, with records in various documents remaining vague and ambiguous. Meng Xinghai nodded. The night mist is endless, and the dark realm stretches without limit. We have no idea how vast it truly is. Though we've stabilized our position and seem to have the upper hand, our knowledge of the night mist world's depths remains limited. For now, we're halting further expansion. If we were to continue pushing forward, there's no telling what species we might encounter. No one knows what terrifying creatures lie ahead, likely even godlike beings. He continued, we're fortunate to live in this era, having already grown strong and temporarily seized the initiative. However, as our population continues to grow, the supply of high-grade fire springs will become insufficient, and our colossal cities will need to expand. When that time comes, we'll likely have to embark on another great expansion era. When that happens, don't be surprised by any bizarre species you encounter or any strange phenomena you discover. It's even possible to glimpse hidden realms deep within the night mist world. The Great Expansion Era, the Great Pioneering Era. Qin Ming murmured. The very name stirred a young man's blood, making him yearn to participate in such monumental events. It was clear that against this grand backdrop, countless extraordinary figures would rise, rapidly growing into pillars of their respective paths. Undoubtedly, it would be an era overflowing with heroes, a time when the stars shone with unparalleled brilliance. Yet, upon reflection, it was equally clear that if another great expansion war were to erupt and the Great Pioneering Era were to return, countless lives would inevitably be lost. Glory, splendor, blood. Many imaginable scenes would accompany the rise of powerful figures, lending greater weight and significance to their achievements. But countless youthful dreams would also shatter, their bearers becoming mere bones along the path of the Great Expansion Era and the Great Pioneering Era, utterly insignificant. Meng Xinghai said, it's too early to discuss these matters. The higher-ups won't speak of them publicly either, as they're all extremely cautious. After all, no one truly knows what lies deep within the vast night mist world. Despite centuries of exploration, its depths remain a mystery. The two ended their discussion and turned to the immediate practical concerns. Each core disciple can bring 4 golden armored guards into the competition, Meng Xinghai explained. There are some truly formidable individuals among them, like Tan Yu from Luoyu City. Rumor has it he had already mastered over 10 types of heavenly light force during his awakening phase. Over 10 types. Qin Ming calculated. He himself had already mastered over a dozen, many of which were powerful composite techniques. Moreover, the fusion of 2 extraordinary techniques had triggered a dramatic evolution in his heavenly light force. He mused that while his raw power might not match theirs due to his lower cultivation realm, with the heavenly light force enhancement, he should be able to hold his own against certain opponents. A young man named Chen Shuhong has mastered the 5-colored thunder fire force, Meng Xinghai continued, highlighting another dangerous contender. This is a renowned technique with immense destructive power, capable of injuring outsiders of the same cultivation level. His expression turned serious. There are even rumors that a nominal disciple from that ancient Taoist sect, the one that sealed its mountain for 200 years, has emerged. What kind of Tao lineage is that? With such a prestigious background, Qin Ming asked, surprised. Meng Xinghai said solemnly, he had mastered the Jade Pure Force, which is profound and unfathomable, he should be no weaker than those who wield the Heaven-Shattering Force or Tathagata Force. This sect is secluded and maintains a very low profile. He added, fortunately, he's just a nominal disciple, so he probably hasn't learned the true Jade Pure Force yet. Meng Xinghai took a sip of tea and continued, also, there's a rumor that someone from the secluded 5 Elements Palace has also emerged, a young man invited to lend his strength. If he has truly mastered the 5 Elements force, he would be a formidable and dangerous opponent, especially among your generation. Qin Ming remarked, it seems these secluded Tao lineages are becoming more active. Could this signal the dawn of a new era of expansion for the various sects? Are the figures hidden within the night mist-shrouded spirit mountains about to descend into the world? Meng Xinghai replied, while that trend is indeed emerging, this particular event is primarily about the core disciples from beyond the mortal realm competing for an immortal artifact. It's like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each displaying their unique abilities. Everyone is seeking allies, which is understandable. He then commented on several other individuals, including the former disciple of the Tathagata and Kui Chongshuan, all of whom had mastered the extraordinary heavenly light force. Based on this information, Qinming began to assess his potential rivals. Meng Xinghai reassured him, don't feel pressured. You won't need to intervene. Besides, apart from the specially invited few, the true golden armored guards are of only average strength. As he explained, this age was the prime of youthful ambition. Who would willingly become someone else's follower? Relatively speaking, the outer saints who appeared here were those who had lost their way, forced into this path by a lack of hope for the future. Apart from a handful of temporary reinforcements, the truly exceptional talents are all participating in the annual Great Examination. They won't abandon their prospects at this stage. Meng Xinghai sighed softly. Among the geniuses taking the Great Examination, some will eventually join the Beyond the Mortal Realm as Jade-armored guards after many years. The most remarkable ones will endure even longer, ultimately becoming Divine Armor Guards. Qinming was speechless. So, everyone on this path eventually becomes someone else's follower. The more talented they are, the later they compromise, ultimately forced to accept the harsh reality. Unless you can achieve rapid breakthroughs after reaching major realms like manifestation and spirit field, you'll spend a decade of arduous cultivation just to climb a small step. Can you endure that? There must be a way, Qinming mused, realizing that the Overlord's strength was growing at a decent pace. Meng Xinghai had departed, unable to linger in Mount Luofu immortal town. Li Qingyu returned, having received guidance from her sect elders. With only contenders remaining in town, tonight might not be peaceful, Qinming remarked. They wouldn't dare attack us. You can sleep in the room next to mine, Li Qingyu replied with a faint smile, radiating confidence. As one of the most favored contenders, she had every reason to be assured. She had already retrieved the golden armor for Qinming and introduced him to 3 others, 2 men and a woman, who had been following her for over a year. Apart from Qinming, Li Qingyu hadn't recruited any additional allies, relying solely on her original 3 golden armored guards. Let's go for a walk, she suggested. Qinming was surprised. At a time like this, we should be keeping a low profile, not venturing outside. Li Qingyu, clad in white robes, her raven hair gleaming with luster, her flawless face radiant like a divine flower blooming against the icy wind, fresh yet dazzling, smiled. They should be afraid of me, dread me, not I should be wary of them. If I lacked such confidence and resolve, I wouldn't have come to contend for that legendary artifact. All right. Qinming stood up and followed her outside. It was already dusk, the evening glow painting the night mist crimson. The fire spring in Mount Luofu immortal town flowed slowly, dividing the day from night. The town was filled with ancient relics, remnants of 1,000 years past. Other core disciples strolled through the ancient streets, radiating confidence as entourages trailed behind them. A crowd of outsider disciples quickly gathered around Li Qingyu. Qinming soon realized that these outsider disciples centered around Li Qingyu, pledging to actively assist her after entering the spiritual cave. This was the essence of being a core disciple, possessing sufficient prestige to attract disciples who saw little hope for advancement on their own. In truth, these disciples had already made private contact with Li Qingyu, forming the foundation of her future power base in the Beyond the Mortal Realm. This arrangement was mutually beneficial. The outsider disciples, aware of their limitations, naturally gravitated toward a rising star destined for greatness. Kui Chong had already left the ancient town, forbidden from spending the night there. The junior brother he supported had emerged, a disciple of one of his senior uncle's disciples, possessing exceptional talent. After receiving the yin-yang grand elixir, his strength had surged dramatically. At that moment, Kui Chongshuan stood beside the young man, flanked by the Kui clan's elite golden armored guards. Qinming realized that the powerful core disciples had emerged to flex their muscles, bolstering the confidence of their outsider disciples. Sure enough, he spotted Li Qingshu again. What caught his attention was the golden armored youth wielding a massive spear at Li Qingshu's side. Qinming's heart stirred. Could this be Li Qingshu's master, who had entrusted the Overlord legacy to the lineage's golden armored guard? The Overlord legacy may be easy to cultivate in its early stages, but can they truly grasp its profound meaning? It's meant for those who have reached the spirit field realm and beyond. Qinming mused skeptically. Li Qingshu was also accompanied by a sizable group of outsider disciples. Soon, Qinming recognized familiar faces from beyond the mortal realm, such as Lu Junyi and Chen Bingyan. They seemed to be sticking together for mutual support. Wang Kaiwei appeared as well, her figure as graceful and radiant as ever, her dark hair flowing like silk. She was surrounded by a group of people, including 4 exceptional young masters specially recruited by the Wang clan. These prodigies wielded the rare heavenly light force, a legacy of extraordinary power. Brother Li. Core disciple Tang Zumi greeted, flashing a sincere smile. A large group of followers stood behind him. Qin Ming grinned back, revealing his pearly white teeth. You sly bird-chasing boy, he thought, still playing the innocent act. Core disciples continued to arrive, though Qin Ming recognized only a few. Li Qingshu, are your cousins among your golden armored guards? Is Li Qingxiao there? I heard someone kicked his ass recently and made him cry like a baby. Even in the beyond the mortal realm, the core disciples were a diverse bunch. Now, someone was deliberately provoking Li Qingshu, mocking him openly. And the instigator was a young woman. Luo Qing, you can't resist, can you? Eager to fight me already? Li Qingshu retorted, glaring at his sworn rival. He muttered to himself, the one who humiliated my junior brother was crippled by 3 strikes of my staff. Yet he seems to be recovering. Unexpected. Li Qingyu suddenly interjected, Li Qingshu, as long as I'm here, you won't get your hands on any immortal artifacts. The man you attacked years ago was my close friend. It's time to settle that score. See you in the spiritual cave. Blank, _ End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 103, Going with the Flow. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The fire spring dyed the night mist crimson, illuminating Mount Luofu immortal town. The ancient bluestone paths, weathered by a millennium of time, were now pitted and uneven, radiating an aura of weathered antiquity. Evening glow flowed around Li Qingyu like a divine radiance. Her words carried immense weight, and her declaration had a profound impact. Li Qingshu, clad in purple robes, felt a flicker of unease, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Instantly, whispers rippled through the crowd of outsider disciples, even those around Li Qingshu growing visibly uncomfortable. Li Qingyu, this is none of your concern, Li Qingshu said, his voice calm as he gripped his luminous purple bamboo staff. He realized that an undercurrent was about to surge. His longtime rival had already been provoking him, and Li Qingyu's forceful stance at this critical moment seemed to have tipped the balance. I won't repeat myself. Li Qingyu declared, her white robes pristine against the fireglow, her entire being radiating a faint golden light. Li Qingshu, we'll settle our old scores in the spiritual cave, Tang Zumi announced. Li Qingshu, our duel will be tomorrow in the spiritual cave. Core disciple Zhang Shengyu declared without explanation. Count me in 2. Another voice chimed in. In an instant, many understood. The core disciples had reached an unspoken agreement to eliminate Li Qingshu first upon entering the spiritual cave. The situation unfolded in a way few had anticipated. Li Qingshu knew that Li Qingyu's decisive sword strike at the critical moment had been ruthless, plunging him into a dangerous situation. He understood perfectly well that Tang Zumi had no genuine grievances against him. This was clearly an opportunistic move, a way to curry favor with Li Qingyu while eliminating a rival. With Tang Zumi setting the precedent, the other core disciples would naturally follow suit. As each faction declared its stance, Li Qingshu's position grew increasingly precarious. The outsider disciples who had previously supported him now remained silent. Though none had deserted him outright, their loyalty after entering the spiritual cave tomorrow was uncertain. After all, no one wanted to defy the overwhelming tide. If the core disciples truly united against him, how could he possibly withstand them? Li Qingshu spoke in a low, steady voice, they're just bluffing, trying to intimidate us. When we enter the spiritual cave, we'll each take different paths, making it impossible for them to surround us. Even if we encounter another group, a full-scale battle is unlikely, since everyone knows our true objective. Don't take their words at face value. He needed to reassure his followers. Without their support in the competition for the near-immortal artifact, he would be overwhelmed and unable to cope. Senior brother Li, we will do everything in our power to help you compete for that legendary artifact, Zheng Yuan declared. In the past, he had been on good terms with Qin Ming, but after entering beyond the mortal realm, he had grown closer to Li Qingshu. During their chance encounter at Black and White Mountain, Zheng Yuan, like Zheng Mao's, showed Qin Ming no goodwill. Senior brother Li, rest assured, we stand by your side, another outsider disciple added. They and the core disciples were mutually reinforcing each other, and the sooner they chose sides, the better the outcome. Li Qingshu knew that while these disciples had pledged their support, they might not immediately rally to his side after entering the arena tomorrow. They would likely observe the situation first. He nodded calmly, maintaining an aura of composure and poise. The more he tried to persuade or retain anyone, the more counterproductive it would be. Impressive. That girl is quite capable. With just a few words, she nearly toppled a formidable competitor, an outsider expert remarked outside Mount Luofu immortal town, nodding in approval. If that elder knew his newly accepted disciple with such extraordinary innate talent might be the first to be eliminated, wouldn't he fly into a rage? Silence. That name must not be spoken, someone warned. The old senior was fiercely protective and ruthless, feared by all. Even the peerlessly majestic overlord was just one of the renowned figures he had casually slain. The older he grew, the fierier his temper became. Outside the town, a young man spoke up, defending Li Qingshu. Junior sister Li, you're going too far. You haven't even entered the spiritual cave yet, and you're already making your move. But before he could finish, an elder warned him, you old disciple, yes, you. Shut your mouth and step back. Beyond the mortal realm only allowed the disciples competing for the spiritual cave to reside in the immortal town. These events were part of the trial, and outsiders were forbidden from interfering. The young man was initially stunned. At just 24 years old, how could he be considered old? Compared to this ancient geezer, he was practically in the prime of his youth. Daring not to argue, he obediently retreated, his guilty conscience silencing him. The elder then pointed at the group of young people, and you lot, all you old disciples. Don't get too close. Back away now. The group wanted to retort, who's old here? Kui Chong, who was among them, felt particularly aggrieved. His age was similar to the youths in Mount Luofu immortal town, yet he had been disqualified from the competition and now this decrepit elder was calling him an old disciple. Expressionless, he walked away. In Mount Luofu immortal town, the initial tense standoff had given way to an atmosphere of harmony. Core disciples mingled, chatting and laughing. Whether they were truly allies or enemies remained unclear. In truth, these interactions were merely for show. The core disciples had already made contact beforehand, and this display was intended to boost the morale of their followers. Qinming didn't follow Li Qingyu toward the outsider disciples. Instead, he observed those walking the path of awakening, trying to discern who had mastered special forms of heavenly light force. A small group among them warranted particular attention, as even the outsider core disciples dared not underestimate them. The former disciple of the Tathagata, disciples of the Five Elements Palace, and inheritors of the Jade Pure Force were all considered extremely dangerous at this stage. Unsurprisingly, these individuals who relied on bodily mutations were also sizing each other up. Brother, if we meet in the spiritual cave, we can spar, but let's not go for the kill. We're all walking the same path, true comrades. Agreed. See that youth with arms that reach his knees. His name is Hitai. They say he's mastered the Great Ape King Fist to perfection. He killed an outer saint during his awakening phase, extremely dangerous and violently tempered. Don't provoke him. Qinming casually strolled around, gathering a wealth of information. Hitai. They actually invited him to help. He was the top scorer in the great examination personally appointed by the city lord of Giant City. He killed an outer saint during his awakening stage. Now that he's reached the manifestation realm, who can possibly stand against him? In an instant, many eyes turned to Hitai, and whispers about him intensified. Qinming couldn't help but glance at him as well, learning that the Zheng clan had specifically invited this young prodigy for Zheng Mao's. The Great Ape King Force is a super complex heavenly light force, extremely difficult to master. Yet Hitai had already achieved mastery at a young age, earning him the title of future Grand Master of Fist Techniques. Even now, he exudes an aura of greatness. Qinming listened quietly, memorizing this dangerous individual. Am I seeing things? The Pure Yang Palace actually sent someone too. Another formidable figure was recognized, Zhang Kongyan, a disciple of the Pure Yang Palace. His Dao lineage's Pure Yang force was renowned for its invincibility and unparalleled dominance. A member of the Millennial clan had personally visited the Pure Yang Palace to request this young expert on behalf of Wang Kaiwei. Many outsider disciples showed visible alarm. In the Heart Purification Realm and Yellow Court Realm, they had to be extremely wary of certain specialized forces, lest they meet a bitter end. The Pure Yang force was exceptionally terrifying, capable of scorching and shattering one's consciousness' spiritual light. Wang Kaiwei clearly valued Zhang Kongyan, keeping him by her side and formally introducing him whenever they faced groups of outsider disciples. Which one is the former disciple of the Tathagata? Which one is the successor of the Jade Pure Force? And where are the disciples from the Five Elements Palace? Brother, do you know any of them? Can you point them out for me? Qinming asked a burly young man beside him. No idea. They're keeping a low profile. I get the feeling those guys could pose a threat even to the core disciples. Not only those from beyond the mortal realm, but also individuals who had taken other paths, gathered outside Mount Luofu immortal town, all closely observing the competition. In the outside world, many places had already opened betting pools, allowing people to wager on which core disciple of beyond the mortal realm would ultimately emerge victorious, turning the event into a major business venture. The successor of the Jade Pure Force, the former disciple of the Tathagata, Zhang Kongyan, Kui Chongshuan, Hitai. These specially invited individuals, who will be the one to break through the spiritual cave and claim the final victory. Will someone be hired to defeat certain core disciples head-on and seize the near-immortal artifact? Place your bets. 5 Elements Force, Pure Yang Force, 6 Imperial Force. Which is the strongest? Time to gamble. Clearly, the core disciples weren't the only ones under scrutiny. Those specially invited individuals, masters of terrifying martial forces, had also become betting targets in various pools. That night, beneath the night mist, countless people across major cities and regions discussed the event, gamblers treating it like a grand festival, eagerly placing their bets. Late into the night, Qinming slept soundly, clutching his jade iron sword, wary of potential disturbances. By now, all parties were watching with tense anticipation. Even experts from beyond the mortal realm and direct descendants of millennial clans had personally invited participants, underscoring the immense importance placed on this event. The night passed without incident. Just before dawn, as the fire spring fully reactivated and the stone slab covering it was lifted, a sudden attack struck. At this critical moment, someone had actually made a move. Li Qingshu, I knew you'd come. Why bother hiding? Li Qingyu stepped out, her body radiating a celestial glow that dispelled the night mist. A figure shattered a nearby house in silence before retreating without engaging Li Qingyu directly. Tang Zumi appeared, his sword already drawn. Shall we join forces to cripple him and drive him away? He whispered. There's no time, Li Qingyu shook her head. The dark figure stood at the entrance to Mount Luofu Immortal Town. Engaging him there would prevent a swift kill and alert those outside the town. He's lost the initiative and is trying to establish dominance by ambushing one of us tonight, Tang Zumi said before vanishing into the night mist. Meanwhile, Qinming had fully armed himself. His golden armor gleamed brilliantly, his tall, imposing figure radiating heroic energy. 12 short spears were strapped to his back, and a jade iron sword hung at his waist. He knew the golden armor forged by the outsiders was inscribed with special runes that could block a single fatal blow. After all, the armor's purpose was merely to compete for near-immortal artifacts, not to cause excessive casualties. When activated, the runes would generate a protective barrier, allowing defeated participants to escape the spiritual cave. However, there were exceptions. If someone relentlessly attacked, disregarding the cost to shatter the protective barrier, or if a defeated participant refused to leave immediately, exhausting the barrier's duration, they risked certain death within the spiritual cave. Li Qingyu retrieved a thin, golden robe from her room. Soft yet mystical, it shimmered with intricate, flowing runes. She whispered, wear this too. It'll provide a second layer of protection. Qinming realized this was a protective golden robe specially crafted for core disciples, of exceptional quality. He immediately shook his head. He already had the golden armor. If he wore Li Qingyu's life-saving garment, she would be left vulnerable, a regret she might carry for life if anything happened to her. My strength is sufficient. No core disciple can kill me. Besides, I have protective measures. Even if unforeseen circumstances arise, I can escape the spiritual cave instantly. You've only undergone 5 awakenings. It's not to underestimate you, but you've only recently embarked on the path of awakening and still need time to accumulate power. I'm just worried about not being able to protect you adequately. Li Qingyu spoke frankly, revealing her hidden concerns. Qinming shook his head firmly. Though he was here to help, her offering him the life-saving golden robe warmed his heart. He couldn't possibly let her face such unpredictable dangers alone. If you won't wear the protective golden robe yourself, we might as well abandon this competition altogether. Qinming declared. Finally, Li Qingyu returned to her room, donned the golden armor beneath a layer of silver armor, instantly radiating heroic valor and extraordinary presence. At dawn, the crimson glow of the fire spring sunrise bathed Mount Luofu Immortal Town, dispelling the night mist and painting the landscape in brilliant light. The group set out and soon arrived at the Immortal Mountain ruins, several miles away, where they entered a network of stone caves. Each group will take a different path, entering through separate passages, a voice echoed telepathically from a master of the beyond the mortal realm. Qinming followed closely beside Li Qingyu as they ventured deeper into the cave passage, initially expecting to descend into an underground realm of perpetual darkness. To his surprise, they emerged into a sunlit pine forest, where clear springs gurgled and the air was as bright as midday. The other 3 golden armored guards shared Qinming's astonishment. Li Qingyu remained composed, her gaze sweeping across the landscape. In the open clearing beyond the pine forest, she spotted a familiar figure, Zheng Mao's. From the mountainous terrain on the opposite side, Li Qingshu approached with a smile. What a coincidence, Li Qingyu. I never expected to encounter you so soon. He glanced at Zheng Mao's. Let's join forces and send her on her way. Then he chuckled, noticing Wang Kaiwei approaching in the distance, accompanied by Zhang Kongyan, a master of the Pure Yang Palace. Li Qingshu called out, Kaiwei, let's all work together to send Immortal Li on her final journey. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 104, The Consequences of Overwhelming Tension. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The pine forest stretched vast and wide, its air faintly scented with resin. Dense clusters of pine needles adorned the branches like verdant, slender swords. A clear spring gurgled through the woods, while a silent fire spring spread its crimson glow across the ancient pines, painting the landscape with extraordinary beauty. Yet no one paused to admire the scenery. The atmosphere crackled with tension. None had anticipated this unexpected encounter so soon after entering the spiritual cave. Li Qingshu, clad in purple robes, stood calmly with his purple bamboo staff, forged in heavenly light, in hand, a serene smile playing on his lips. The tables had turned. Instead of being the hunted, he and his acquaintances had cornered their opponent, Li Qingyu, here. However, his two companions remained silent, seemingly as surprised by this turn of events as anyone else. Li Qingyu, clad in silver armor, her black hair fluttering in the breeze, said nothing as she advanced directly toward Li Qingshu. Her presence was now overwhelmingly assertive. Though her figure remained as delicate as a willow, the armor transformed her aura, making her seem far more formidable than before. A radiant glow enveloped her entire body, parting the pine branches and vines in her path. The ground beneath her feet seemed to pave itself with shimmering light, extending a luminous path forward. Wang Kaiwei won't intervene. Stay here, Li Qingyu transmitted telepathically, instructing Qin Ming and the three golden armored guards not to follow. In truth, Qin Ming had already anticipated this. Wang Kaiwei was unlikely to get involved. If she assisted Li Qingshu, what would Kui Chong think afterward? Zheng Mao's wiped his brow, bewildered by this unexpected turn of events. This put him in an awkward position. Killing to silence witnesses was out of the question here. Even if Li Qingshu and Li Qingyu were severely injured, they would undoubtedly escape the spiritual cave. Now he was forced to choose sides, and either decision would offend someone. On a personal level, he had grown closer to Li Qingshu over the past 2 years. After all, the latter possessed unparalleled talent and a terrifyingly protective teacher. Yet Li Qingyu's rise had been equally meteoric. She feared no opponent in a one-on-one confrontation. After a moment of internal struggle, the slightly stocky Zheng Mao spoke up, "We're all acquaintances here, old friends who used to be close. There's no need for such hostility." Qin Ming knew this was typical of big strong Zheng's character. Though he appeared rough at first glance, he possessed a surprisingly refined mind. Zheng Mao's had also correctly assessed that Wang Kaiwei wouldn't intervene. He had long recognized the Wang clan's heiress as a formidable figure. Despite her perpetual smile, he had never once seen her lose her temper. Beyond Qin Ming's stated reason, Zheng Mao's believed there were other compelling factors that would prevent Wang Kaiwei from intervening. One reason was that Li Qingyu had confronted Li Qingshu precisely because she had publicly dredged up past grievances, seeking to avenge their mutual friend Qin Ming and settle old scores. Wang Kaiwei had also been involved in those past events, having once traveled with Qin Ming. If she were to side with Li Qingshu against Li Qingyu now, she risked being privately criticized for her cold-heartedness. Another crucial factor was that Li Qingshu was currently being targeted by several core disciples, making his chances of obtaining the near-immortal artifact slim. Li Qingyu, on the other hand, stood a strong chance of success. If she acquired the artifact, she would undoubtedly become a pivotal figure in the beyond the mortal realm. From a long-term perspective, it would be unwise to antagonize her. True to form, Wang Kaiwei, clad in black armor, smiled, a radiant yet gentle expression that felt like a warm spring breeze. "We were all friends in the past," she said, smoothing over the tension. "Why have we grown distant since coming to the beyond the mortal realm? If we were to join forces, our combined strength would be far greater than any individual's. Wouldn't cooperation be better than conflict?" Li Qingyu continued to advance, her radiant form illuminating the thick carpet of pine needles beneath her feet. The silver armor she wore clanked with each step. She smiled at Wang Kaiwei and nodded to Zheng Mao's, acknowledging their decisions. Li Qingshu sighed inwardly. He had anticipated this outcome, but he couldn't avoid confronting Li Qingyu. A battle was inevitable. In truth, Li Qingshu was exceptionally powerful. Otherwise, Tang Zumi, Zhang Shengyu, and the others wouldn't have joined forces with Li Qingyu to target him. His expression remained calm as he glanced at Wang Kaiwei without a word before secretly transmitting a message to Zheng Mao's using a secret technique. What? Zheng Mao's face changed. Li Qingshu had mentioned his master, an incredibly protective and terrifying elder who was still in his prime, with many years left to live. Moreover, Li Qingshu had promised to enhance Zheng Mao's strength immediately. Zheng Mao's expression shifted slightly. There were benefits to be gained, but more importantly, he was terrified of that elder. Even the millennial clans wouldn't dare offend such a figure. "Qingyu, I'm sorry. I have my reasons for intervening. But rest assured, I'm just joining the fray for show. I won't truly harm you or engage in a life or death struggle," Zheng Mao secretly transmitted. He was about to enter the fray. Beside him stood He Tai, a terrifying master of the Great Ape King Force, hailed as a future Grand Master of First Technique. Even in his awakening stage, he had already slain an outer saint. He stepped forward, ready to follow Zheng Mao's lead. He Tai was a young prodigy specially recruited by the Zheng clan, a millennial clan. Having received substantial benefits, he was naturally determined to give his all. Zheng Mao secretly instructed, don't engage directly with me. Just block Li Qingyu's 4 golden armored guards. No need to go all out, just stall them. Li Qingyu's beautiful face turned as cold as an iceberg as she glanced at He Tai. Abruptly changing direction, she charged straight toward him. Clearly, she feared he would severely injure Qin Ming and the 3 golden armored guards, and she wanted to eliminate him first. Sensing her intent, He Tai instantly unleashed his heavenly light force. His eyes glowed with primal ferocity, as if the great ape king himself had descended upon the world. A terrifying surge of energy erupted, and the heavenly light that streaked past shattered the ancient pines nearby. Qingyu, Zheng Mao's urgently transmitted telepathically, I've ordered He Tai not to truly harm your people. I swear on my honor that this is the truth. He Tai was his trump card. With their combined strength, they might actually have a chance to obtain the legendary artifact. A premature clash would be disastrous. Li Qingyu's deep eyes shimmered with a mysterious light. Having cultivated her spiritual eyes, she could discern that Zheng Mao's was telling the truth. Without a word, she charged directly at Li Qingshu. In the forest, vibrant clouds surged around her, bathing her in dazzling radiance. Gone was the serene, ethereal aura of an immortal maiden, now she exuded an overwhelming aura of power. Li Qingshu smiled. Though he wasn't confident in facing Li Qingyu alone, Zheng Mao's alliance with him gave him a decisive advantage. In a clash between masters, even a slight edge could shift the tide of battle, let alone the addition of a formidable opponent like Zheng Mao's. Li Qingyu, you'll likely be the first to be eliminated. Li Qingshu laughed. His hair glowed with ethereal light, his purple robes billowed wildly as he swung his purple bamboo staff. The surrounding pine forest roared and trembled violently as his consciousness spiritual light expanded, intertwined, and shattered nearby ancient pines and massive vines. Li Qingshu advanced to meet Li Qingyu head-on. Before they even closed the distance, their consciousness energies and yellow court light collided, transforming the battlefield into a terrifying spectacle. Centuries-old pine trees exploded, and massive boulders disintegrated. Take out her golden armored guards. Li Qingshu roared, commanding the 4 experts behind him. Simultaneously, Li Qingshu glanced at Zheng Mao's and his accompanying assistants. Zheng Mao steeled his resolve and attacked, but he secretly transmitted a message to He Tai, don't go all out. Hold back. Behind Li Qingshu, 4 golden armored guards charged into battle. Some fought barehanded, while others wielded heavy weapons like spiked maces. The most striking figure was a young warrior in golden armor, wielding a massive spear, likely a descendant of the legendary overlord. Clearly, Li Qingshu's master intended to demonstrate that even the legacy of the peerless overlord of old, when mastered by his disciples, amounted to nothing more than a golden armored guard. This was a psychological tactic meant to intimidate. The 4 guards bypassed the core disciples and surged forward, their murderous chi shaking the pine forest. All of them were clearly outer saints. At the critical moment, Li Qingyu broke free from the combined attack of Li Qingshu and Zheng Mao's, charging toward the 4 guards. 5-colored divine radiance erupted, and as the guards entered the area, they found themselves mired in a quagmire of spiritual energy. Li Qingyu, you can't interfere. Li Qingshu hissed, his purple bamboo staff, unyielding even after being bathed in otherworldly heavenly light, cracking the air as he swung it toward her back. Qin Ming hurled 4 short spears in rapid succession, the projectiles whistling through the pine forest with thunderous force as they hurtled toward the golden armored guards. Though the 4 outer saints staggered, nearly toppled by Li Qingyu's earlier assault, Li Qingshu's timely intervention had freed them from her grasp. Heavenly light blazed around the 4 figures as they met the spears head-on. Some parried with bare hands, others with weapons, sending the projectiles careening away with resounding crashes. The spears pierced through nearby thick pine trees, leaving gaping holes in their trunks. Qin Ming's expression turned grim. Pure physical strength alone was clearly insufficient against these opponents. His heavenly light couldn't yet be channeled into ordinary weapons, rendering the spears ineffective. Kill. The 2 men and 1 woman who had followed Li Qingyu for over a year, now having established a foothold in the outer saint realm, roared as they charged forward, fearlessly engaging the enemy. Bronze staff in hand, Qin Ming followed silently, ready for a fierce battle. Seeing Zheng Mao's 4 reinforcements closing in to encircle them, Li Qingyu took a deep breath. She stubbornly withstood the combined pressure from Li Qingshu and Zheng Mao's, dragging both men toward the battlefield where the golden armored guard stood. Chaos erupted as core disciples and outer saints clashed in the same area, creating an extremely dangerous situation. Qin Ming suddenly accelerated, refusing to believe he was outmatched. Having fused over a dozen types of heavenly light force and imbued it into his body, how could he possibly be unable to defeat a single outer saint? During their previous encounter in the desert, he had paid a terrible price to kill one. Now, having fused two extraordinary techniques, causing the heavenly light force to undergo an astonishing transformation and its power to surge dramatically, he should have an even better chance. With a clang, he swung the bronze staff with all his might, only for the golden-armored youth to cleave it in two with his great spear. Qin Ming's expression darkened. This weapon, carefully selected from Kai Sha City's armory, was forged from mixed metals, not true bronze. How could it be shattered in an instant? He noticed the golden-armored youth smirking as a foot-long sword of heavenly light erupted from the great spear. Qin Ming felt a chill run down his spine. The spear itself was already over 2 meters long, and the youth's heavenly light extended another foot beyond its tip, truly astonishing. He recalled the outer saint he had killed in the desert, who had been unable to project heavenly light beyond half a foot from his body or weapon. Could this golden-armored youth's heavenly light truly extend over 2 meters from his body? It was a terrifying prospect. The youth smirked cruelly, slashing his great spear diagonally, giving his opponent no chance to switch weapons. Heavenly light surged, threatening to obliterate Qin Ming. Li Qingyu, enduring the combined pressure from Li Qingshu and Zheng Mao's, rushed to Qin Ming's aid. Qin Ming, indeed under immense pressure, poured all his strength into the fight. He channeled his unified heavenly light force to unprecedented heights. Li Qingyu's eyes flickered with realization. She abruptly halted, her expression shifting to astonishment, and stopped advancing. Qin Ming struck the great spear barehanded, yet the weapon didn't break. His heart sank, but his combat instincts remained sharp. Seizing the golden-armored youth's moment of surprise and hesitation, he closed the distance, pressed against the spear, and unleashed the full force of his silk book technique-infused heavenly light force. The golden-armored youth's heart pounded with dread. What kind of monster is this? He thought. He can already contend with an outer saint barehanded, even before mastering external projection of heavenly light. His great spear, forged with jade iron, was designed to channel his heavenly light. Yet Qin Ming had just dispersed the heavenly light on the spear with a single hand. He sensed imminent danger. With his opponent closing in, he had no choice but to release his great spear and unleash heavenly light from his hands, transforming them into tiger claws to meet the attack head-on. Ah! The next moment, he screamed in agony as his tiger claw force shattered. The bones in his fingers snapped, flesh and blood flew, and a blow struck his chest. Instantly, his golden body armor glowed, its runes blazing brilliantly, shielding him from certain death. Without this protection, he would have been crushed by his opponent's bare hands. Qin Ming remained slightly tense. The unified heavenly light force continued to surge, unable to pierce the golden armor's runic defenses. He redirected his attack toward the shattered hand. This terrifying heavenly light force could spread through flesh and blood. The golden-armored youth only managed a piercing wail before his entire body exploded into a bloody mist within the glowing armor. This single strike shattered the battlefield's stalemate. This outer saint is undeserving of his title, Qin Ming murmured, his tension fading. Just looks intimidating. And I guess I'm not so weak after all. Blank, _ End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Melworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Boundaries. Chapter 105, All Tough Battles. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The fire spring gurgled and flowed, winding through the pine forest, its fiery glow contrasting sharply with the verdant pines. Qin Ming's low murmur naturally reached the ears of those nearby. The golden-armored guards across from him, deeply wary of him, instinctively widened the distance between them. They found it absurd that such a ferocious youth could still appear slightly bewildered. At the final moment, his hands transformed into tiger claws. That must be his most proficient heavenly light force technique, with little connection to the Overlord legacy. He clearly hasn't mastered it. Qin Ming felt a sense of relief. This was merely a bluffing outer saint, his reputation far exceeding his actual abilities. Even Li Qingyu's 3 followers exchanged surprised glances, wanting to ask, are you seriously analyzing and pondering this? In truth, the primary reason for Qin Ming's confusion was that he had been deceived by the great spear. Seeing the opponent's heavenly light extending over 2 meters, he had instantly tensed, his hair standing on end. During his previous battle in the desert against an outer saint whose heavenly light only extended half a foot, he had nearly died. How could he not be terrified when facing a golden-armored youth with such a formidable heavenly light? Yet the outcome left him utterly bewildered. It wasn't until Qin Ming picked up the great spear, gave it a gentle shake, and felt his own heavenly light force surge outward that his expression changed. He finally realized what had gone wrong. This was a rare weapon forged with jade iron. In an instant, his confusion vanished, replaced by clarity. He now understood why the golden-armored youth's heavenly light could extend over 2 meters from his body. It was all thanks to that extraordinary great spear. That makes sense now. So you're not as strong as you seemed. Qin Ming's gaze sharpened as he glared at the golden-armored guards opposite him. He had finally grasped the true extent of his own power, realizing he had almost been deceived by these opponents. I'm certainly not weak. Qin declared, his eyes fixed on his nearby adversaries with predatory intensity. The outer saints across from him, oblivious to his internal reflections, were infuriated by the youth's sudden shift in demeanor, interpreting it as deliberate mockery. In truth, everyone had been stunned by Qin earlier feat, annihilating an outer saint within his rune-etched golden armor. A smile bloomed on Li Qingyu's face, her expression visibly lightening. She recalled Meng Xinghai's words about Qin unparalleled talent, surpassing even otherworlders of his age. He was destined to walk far down the path of awakening. Yet even old Meng himself hadn't fully grasped the sheer dominance of Qin unified heavenly light force, capable of clashing with outer saints. Thus, Li Qingyu's earlier assessment of Qin strength had also been incomplete. Li Qingshu's expression darkened. One of his men had been killed in a single exchange, a brutal display of violent aesthetics. Most crucially, the golden-armored youth wielding the great spear shared a distant blood relation with his teacher. Is he really that strong on your path? Zheng Mao secretly asked He Tai. I haven't seen him unleash his heavenly light force yet. You still want me to hold back? He Tai replied with a solemn expression. He believed Qin possessed far greater power than he had shown, and his heavenly light force might be capable of external projection. Zheng Mao's transmitted his thoughts telepathically. The situation is growing increasingly complex. Now there's a master who has cultivated a unique heavenly light force, which puts Li Qingshu at a disadvantage. We can't afford to antagonize Li Qingyu right now. He Tai responded gravely, he might be a former disciple of the Tathagata. If you insist I hold back, what if his sudden burst of heavenly light force kills me? What did you say? He's cultivated the Tathagata force. Zheng Mao's was stunned. Qin was examining the blood mist-shrouded golden armor. Though the youth wearing it had been blasted apart, the armor remained intact, standing on the battlefield, its radiant light flowing in dazzling patterns. So there's a weakness, Qin murmured. Attacking through the hands and feet allows heavenly light force to seep in and kill the wearer. The opposing outer saint immediately retreated, sensing the youth's ruthlessness and his determination to completely annihilate his enemies. Qin now understood the beyond the world expert's intentions. The golden armor could protect its wearer from harm, but its complete lack of bloodshed made it too gentle, failing to capture the true spirit of competition. This arrangement offered the defeated a chance to survive, but it also ensured they couldn't remain completely defenseless. In the distance, Wang Kaiwei, clad in black gold armor, stood with graceful poise. Her beautiful face bore a peculiar expression as she turned to her companion and asked, "This young man is quite remarkable. Have you identified his origins? Do you think he can truly unleash the heavenly light?" The young powerhouse beside her, Zhang Kongyan, a disciple of the Pure Yang Palace known for his vast knowledge, replied, I suspect he has mastered the Jade Pure Force. If he can already project the heavenly light, he will be an exceptionally formidable opponent. Zhang Kongyan's Pure Yang force was overwhelmingly dominant, capable of scorching and shattering even consciousness' spiritual light. Yet he harbored deep apprehension toward the legendary technique. The Tathagata force and the Jade Pure Force have both appeared this time. Wang Kaiwei stared at Qin retreating figure, her brow furrowing slightly. For some reason, he felt strangely familiar. Li Qingshu and Li Qingyu stood locked in a tense standoff, their consciousness spiritual light radiating outward, twisting and shattering the surrounding vegetation and rocks. Within their yellow court, patterns resembling immortal radiance intertwined and flowed, surging outward to shake the nearby ancient pines and fire springs. Li Qingshu urged Zheng Mao to intervene and eliminate the enigmatic golden armored youth wielding the heavenly light force. Brother Li, he might be from that ancient Taoist sect that's been sealed off for 200 years. He practices the Jade Pure Force. Killing him would bring us immense trouble, Zheng Mao secretly replied, deliberately omitting the fact that Qin was a former disciple of the Tathagata. Qin merely tapped his golden armor a few times, wasting no time before charging forward with his great spear. His eyes burned with sharp intensity. For him, the tables had turned. Why wait for his opponents to attack when he could strike first? The great spear felt perfectly balanced in his hands. This weapon combined the characteristics of both spears and lances, yet could also be wielded like a sword or saber for slashing attacks. Most importantly, the 2-meter-long spear was forged with jade iron. His heavenly light could flow along its length, amplifying its destructive power exponentially. Qin moved like the wind, his speed astonishing as he took the initiative. The 2 men and 1 woman behind him watched in disbelief as the youth, his eyes now terrifyingly focused after his initial confusion, abandoned them to charge ahead alone. The 3 golden armored guards quickly followed. Without a word, the 2 sides clashed again. The half-meter-long blade at the tip of Qin 2-meter-long great spear gleamed like a bolt of lightning slashing through the pine forest, aiming for the neck of an outer saint. This expert, who had disdained weapons due to his confidence in his bare-handed strength, now panicked. He swiftly dodged, unwilling to risk contact with the spear. He knew all too well that the weapon contained jade iron, making it virtually unbreakable. Most importantly, he suspected this youth was either a former disciple of the Tathagata or had mastered the Jade Pure Force, a terrifying prospect. Every cultivator on this path had heard legends of such techniques, capable of piercing any heavenly light and overwhelming even the most formidable experts. Encountering such a force meant certain doom. Yet when he tried to counter with his own skills, it felt like showing off his meager skills before a master craftsman. The great spear in the youth's hands seemed to come alive, writhing like a ferocious dragon. It brushed past his neck before suddenly dropping, inexplicably appearing between his hands. The outer saint's hair stood on end. Everyone had witnessed the golden-armored youth, seemingly a former disciple of Tathagata, shatter their companions' hands, channeling heavenly light force into them until they exploded. Now that his hands were also targeted, was this youth trying to kill him outright? Worse still, blood was already flowing from one of his hands. He hadn't dodged in time, and the gleaming spear blade had severed two of his fingers. The outer saint acted decisively. Without daring to retrieve his severed fingers, he turned and fled without a word, terrified of becoming the next casualty. The former disciple of the Tathagata had meticulously studied the golden armor, likely intending to completely annihilate his opponents. The man with the severed finger vanished in an instant. Having only just entered and still near the entrance, he ignored Li Qingshu's murderous glare and retreated without hesitation. With a clang, Qin Ming's great spear collided with the outer saint's spiked mace. The outer saint staggered backward, his mace chipped and 7 or 8 of its spikes sheared off. This time, Qin Ming unleashed the pure power of the Overlord spear. The snow-bright spear blade pierced forward with the force to shatter the heavens, carrying an inexplicable momentum. The 2-meter-long great spear, infused with Qin Ming's heavenly light force, roared, vibrated, and erupted with terrifying shockwaves. The outer saint recoiled in horror. His heavy weapon proved utterly inadequate, inexplicably ensnared by the heavenly light before being flung aside. With a resounding thud, the outer saint felt a searing pain in his chest as an overwhelming force struck him. His protective golden armor instantly flared to life, activating its sacred runes. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Had it not been for the golden armor's intervention, he would have been not only pierced through but also shattered into pieces. Qin Ming thrust his spear again, sending the outer saint flying dozens of meters. The outer saint, realizing he had done his best and would surely die if he continued fighting, immediately fled. He had no regrets, he had given it his all. Junior brother, I'm leaving first. The fourth golden armored guard, from the Li family and actually Li Qingshu's cousin, was even more decisive, fleeing without a fight. He Tai, eager to test his strength, grew increasingly convinced that this was the former disciple of the Tathagata. He wanted to unleash his great ape king force in a full-fledged battle. 100 years ago, their lineage's founder had clashed with a master of the Tathagata force. Though he suffered a crushing defeat, the encounter yielded invaluable insights. Don't go. Zheng Mao's blocked He Tai's path. He suspected the spear-wielding youth had already mastered the heavenly light force to the point of external projection, fearing He Tai would be outmatched. Historical records showed that while the great ape king force was terrifying, it ultimately fell short against the Tathagata force. More importantly, Zheng Mao sensed powerful experts approaching. As an outsider disciple, his heightened consciousness spiritual light made him exceptionally perceptive. Junior sister Li, you're here too. Tang Zumi appeared, a smile on his face. He then turned his gaze to Li Qingshu and said, Brother Li, looks like you're about to be eliminated. Qin Ming and his group had barely entered the spiritual cave when they were cornered. Before they could release the bird carrying a wisp of Tang Zumi's consciousness spiritual light, it had already drawn him here. Good. Let's send him packing first. Li Qingyu nodded. A swift resolution was preferable to a drawn-out battle with Li Qingshu followed by his expulsion. Li Qingshu's expression darkened. With 2 core disciples targeting him, his chances of winning the spiritual cave and claiming the near-immortal artifact had dwindled to almost nothing. That big fat guy hasn't made a move yet, has he? Tang Zumi glanced toward the other side. Zheng Maozi's consciousness spiritual light nearly boiled over. He was merely physically robust, yet being called Big Strong Zheng behind his back already infuriated him. Now, Tang Zumi had the audacity to call him Big Fat Guy to his face. This was utterly outrageous. Li Qingshu suddenly leapt into the air, fleeing into the distance. He refused to leave the spiritual cave just yet. Even with his chances slim, he intended to hold out until the very end. Ancient pines shattered as Li Qingyu and Tang Zumi intercepted him simultaneously. The 3 of them clashed in the distant forest. A mysterious symbol flashed between Li Qingshu's brows as he wielded a shimmering purple bamboo staff. Enduring a strike of Li Qingyu's consciousness spiritual light, he traded a fierce blow with Tang Zumi. Let's go. Wang Kaiwei led her group away, vanishing swiftly. Let's get out of here. Zheng Mao's, though seething with anger, didn't dare confront Tang Zumi. He dragged the still reluctant He Taiyuan away. Outside the ruins of Mount Luofu Immortal Mountain, many watched anxiously, awaiting the outcome. They soon noticed someone fleeing from the ruins, his hands covered in blood. He's Li Qingshu's golden armored guard, someone remarked. Many exchanged curious glances. Everyone knew how domineering Li Qingshu's teacher, the old senior, was. Though many dared not voice their anger, the core disciples' targeting of his disciple within the rules seemed perfectly reasonable. It had been foreshadowed all along. Li Qingshu might be the first to be eliminated, someone chuckled. The fleeing guard, feeling humiliated, tried to salvage his reputation. I was wounded by the former disciple of the Tathagata. He declared. He can shatter an outer saint's defenses through golden armor. How can you be sure it was the former disciple? Someone challenged. Another guard emerged, also from Li Qingshu's golden armored guards. It could also be a successor of the Jade Pure lineage, he added. Many gasped in surprise. Was the youth beside Li Qingyu truly this formidable? Could the heavenly light force possess such devastating power? Despite the golden armor protecting his body, Li Qingshu was severely wounded, coughing up blood as he fled. Refusing to be eliminated, he escaped using a secret technique. His unwillingness to concede stemmed from the fact that he hadn't yet exhausted all his resources. The Li family's most formidable ally, secretly stationed near a core disciple, had been instructed to intervene if necessary. Though this violated the rules, as long as it remained concealed, their objective could still be achieved. After Tang Zumi departed, Qinming and Li Qingyu promptly released the sparrow, wary of being secretly tracked. A lake formed by converging fire springs shimmered with brilliant light, surrounded by abandoned ancient medicinal fields. A millennium ago, this land had been scorched by otherworldly heavenly light. Now, it was gradually recovering, with occasional medicinal herbs sprouting among the overgrown furrows. Zhou Chengru. Li Qingyu exclaimed, spotting Kui Chongshuan and the youth Kui Chong had supported. Zhou Chengru, ahead. What kind of luck do you have? You keep running into core disciples, Qinming remarked, turning his gaze toward Kui Chongshuan. Over 2 years had passed, and Kui Chongshuan now stood as tall as a grown man, radiating an imposing aura of heroic spirit. Li Qingyu dismissed the notion of bad luck. Defeating each core disciple one by one to claim the near-immortal artifact would make the victory far more meaningful. She cautioned, be careful of Kui Chongshuan. He's become quite renowned among the millennial clans recently. Though he's not suited for the path of the immortals, he's rumored to have mastered the legendary 6 Imperial Heart Scripture. The 6 Imperial Force is not weaker than the Tathagata Force or the Jade Pure Force. Qinming nodded. The moment to test the Silk Book technique had arrived. End of chapter. Subscribe to MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.